Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ECU podcast, an intern survival guide, where we teach you how to survive in Paris and during an internship at an indie festival. We have new hosts every week with different topics each time, ranging from music, fashion, tourism, but above all, independent cinema. We hope you like today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next edition of ECU's Intern Survival Guide. Warning: this podcast occasionally contains strong language which may be unsuitable for children, unusual humor which may be unsuitable for adults, and lots of LGBTQ plus jokes which may be unsuitable for assholes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of ECU's Intern Survival Guide. I'm Rodrigo Estrada. I am the festival coordinator, and joining us is Alaa. He is the head of the Department of Events. So, welcome, Alaa. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Rodrigo. How are you? Thank you for having me today.
So, today we are going to be discussing the topic of working from home. How do we make it happen? How does it work, and why we do it at ECU? And also, I want to know about your experience. So, you are used to be working in the office and also some days working from home. What is different from working from home in Paris to working from home now that you are in Dubai?
So working from home in Paris was a really nice experience. It has some pros and it has some cons. One of the pros is that you're in your own space. You have everything around. You know how to operate. You have your desk, you have your coffee, and it's just chill. But however, the cons of it is sometimes you lack communication with your team. Sometimes they send you an email or they send you a message and it's harder to get to. So that's a con that I would see. But working from Dubai regarding Paris is a bit more complex because now there's time difference. And it's not that big of a deal, but when you have people from other countries, like for example, you, Rodrigo, you're right now in Mexico, there's a massive time difference. So in this time difference, it becomes a bit complicated because you will be sleep deprived, you will need to be awake for specific meetings. So like, for example, we're doing this meeting and it's currently 2 p.m. in Paris, but it's 5 p.m. for me.
And
So
it's
it's
7 a.m. for you.
And it's 7 a.m. for you. So there is a big time difference. However, it's nice that we can make it work.
For me, it's the opposite, actually. Something that I found really, really good when I'm working from home is I can take my time to answer to the messages. When I'm in the office, everybody's like, Rodrigo, Rodrigo, Rodrigo. And people ask me, people interrupt me, and I lose the shift of what I'm doing. So for me, it's way easier to focus on finishing one thing, and then I will switch to the other one. However, I struggle a lot with focus all the time. No, because I don't feel like, okay, nobody's watching me. I can do it later. I can do it at my own pace. So instead of working our normal schedule, like for example, in Paris it's from 10 to 5. Usually here in Paris, in Mexico, it would be from 7 a.m. to like midday. After I have my meetings, after I have my calls, I go down to the kitchen, or I go look for something in my room, or I look for something. Like, I get too distracted and I don't finish things sometimes. So for example, for me, something I do is I'm working all day long. I start at 7 a.m. Today I started at 6:30 at 6 because I had a meeting with Mohammed, which is our new website manager. But for example, I also went to sleep last night around 1 a.m. because I remember I hadn't done something yesterday, and I was like, oh shoot, it's 12 a.m. I have to do it, and I did it like from 12 to 1 a.m. So it kind of fucks me up being here, but I also think it's good that I can do it because I don't have to stop working, or the team will not stop just because one of them cannot make it into the office. But something that I do struggle with is making sure people is working, because as I do, most people that are working, they are just like, oh well, nobody's watching me, I can do it later. Or for example, we had one intern that one day I called her, and she was watching Netflix, and I could hear Netflix on the background, and I was like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, I know this is urgent, how are you doing with it? oh, I'm fine. Yes, I'm working on it right now. And I was like, girl, I can
You-
listen Netflix on the background. But I definitely think that it's a pro that you can do it because some days you don't feel like going into the office. Or for example, we had one intern at he he would prefer not to go to the office because he was making 2 hours every day into the office and 2 hours back home. No, so those 2 hours he said, hey, I would prefer to use them to work on the designs that I have to do than actually having to go to the office because it's something that I can do from home and I'm not so comfortable with people around. So he didn't want to be around 10 people, for example. It was too much for him. Uh, and it was like, okay, it's understandable, but still, at some point, we need you working in the office just so that we can talk, so that we can explain things, because it's way easier to just show them to you to guide you through the process than just being like, hey, now you click on this button. Did you find it? Can you see it? What do you
Yeah,
think?
no, like, for example, this intern that you're talking about, uh, it's the total opposite for me. For me, I'm an extroverted person. If I stay at home for too long working alone, I will go nuts. I will need to speak to people. That's why I would rather do a 2 hour, 3 hour transportation like I was doing for my university, for example, just to be at the office and be around people because the vibes of being in the office, this with your colleagues, your coworkers, you're speaking. If you have a question, you don't need to open up the software and text it down and make sure it's right and send it. You just look at them and be like, "Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's the answer?" It's a faster, like a protocol to work as well. That's why I prefer it more. But I can understand that for some people it would be the total opposite, and that's why this topic could not really come to an end, because for some people they would rather be at home, as you just said, and for some people they would rather be at the office. And as you also mentioned that it gives you the flexibility of to sit down and think. And I can agree to that, because sometimes when I'm asked something at the office, I kind of just pause, lag, and be like, could you give me a second? I need to think about it. But while I'm at home, you see it, you leave it alone, and you just give it 5 to 10 minutes, and then you come back to them afterwards, and there is no delay in that.
Exactly. Or something that I like that we do at the company is the end of the day meetings, the morning meetings, because that kind of even though people are working from home, or even when people are like, maybe I took a lazy day today, nobody's watching anyways. Uh, it forces them to at least talk to us once a day. No, for
Mm.
example, I remember that I did my internship at a French company, and there would be I was completely remotely just because it was a pandemic time and my boss was like I had one team member in Lille, I had the other one in Dubai, and the other one was in Switzerland. No, uh, so I they wouldn't talk to me. I would be like, hey, can we have a meeting? Hey, this is what I did today. And they would spend like 3 or 4 days without talking to me and just be like, okay, well, I'll start doing the next month's things if nobody talks to me. So I felt like it was a pretty one-sided internship. I was just doing everything and they wouldn't come back to me. They wouldn't contact me. They wouldn't answer my questions. And here I take some time. I know I take some time, but something that I do is I try to answer to everybody by the end of the day, at least their questions on each day. Maybe especially since I wake up and for them it's half of the day already. I have a little bit of backlog, but in my experience, I check more Slack when I'm not in the office than when I'm in the office. Because in
Mm.
the office, I'm so used to people asking me that I completely forgot about Slack. And I also
Yeah,
don't have time about it. And here is like, okay, I already checked WhatsApp. I already went through all the messages. Now I have to go through Slack. Then I have to go through my emails. And I have the time just because I can decide what priority is higher and what priority can wait a little bit more.
yeah, I can totally get that. But like, here's the thing as well. For both me and you, we both have the opportunity to be at the office and work at the office.
Yes.
But I could not imagine myself working fully remotely at a job full on remotely. First, because you will never know the people,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, you can see them face to face, but it's not really that much of a connection. Like, for example, right now I'm having French classes to improve my French, and it is 100% online. Yes, I'm seeing the teacher. Yes, I'm seeing the students, but it's just like it's like another universe, you know? Are you gonna ever speak to them in real life? Are you gonna ever have contact with them? You cannot really understand each other through online. You could never make that strong bond of being a coworker with another coworker like face to face. And that's something that would lack. So having it fully online for me is a big disadvantage, but having the flexibility of coming to the office and leaving the office and working online, or that's I think a better way to work. Like in general, having the online in your life.
But do you really think it's because of the online thing, or maybe it's more because of the way this course is designed?
It's not even, I'm not like, it's not specifically the course. It's even like for us at EQ, for example, when I get told that, yeah, we have an event worker coming soon. And it's like, oh, he or she are fully interns, like that are working online. I just immediately in my head, I'm like, yeah, okay, they're gonna do the job. They're gonna work. Is there gonna be a bond? No. Are we gonna get to know each other as coworkers? No. They're gonna open at this time, close at this time. And as you said, some of them don't actually work online. So, but that's when the positive thing that you said comes in when we have the meetings. That's when you can actually speak like at a certain point. That's when you will have the opportunity to kind of speak to them, know who they are, what they do. But you don't have that, oh, it's lunchtime now. Instead of leaving as co-workers to have lunch together, bond, speak, laugh. If you're online, oh, it's lunchtime. Everyone switches their cameras off, for example, in a meeting, and they're gone. They do their stuff, they come back, they're like, oh, we're back. What did you do? Oh, I ate. Yeah, but did you really sit down and laugh about it and have fun or like speak or gossip? It's all for me just a vibe that you should experience as a person living and working both online and in the office.
I completely agree with you that that part is very necessary to the job. And for example, me as a boss, something that I try to do is I try to give the same experience, not with everybody else, but at least with me, to the people who are working fully remotely. No, so for example, with Guste, she's a graphic designer. She's working completely remote. So she sends me messages. She sends me jokes via WhatsApp. I reply to her. I send her jokes. Then with Mariam, who was social media completely remotely, I was also gossiping with her. We were talking about oh yeah, in the office is going this. We will keep her in the loop of the things that were going in the office. And for example, for the HR department, no, yes, we do the interviews, yes, we do this, but I don't think it's only about work. You know, when you just make it like, hey, okay, these are the things that we need to do, these are the things that we need to revise today. Uh, you make it just too impersonal, you know. So when after we go through all the things we need to do, it's like, okay, we let that out of the way. How are you? How are things in the office? I know that you took some vacations. How were they? Just because I'm genuinely interested in knowing about their day to day and about their life, but also
Yeah.
because it makes them feel included. No,
Yeah.
and when they also know a little bit about you, for example, they even want to come at some point. We had one intern. She was 5 months with us, and she was working remotely the whole time. She had classes at the same time. She had a second job, and she was working with us as a journalist. No, and everybody was like, okay, well, she's very nice. Everybody talked to her because she was also like, hey, how are you? How's your day? What is going on in the office? I saw these pictures of this place. Where did you went to? Oh, great. She would send pictures to the WhatsApp group. So everybody felt like they knew her. And then she just came for the weekend of the festival. No, and while some people didn't recognize her at first because she had changed her hair color and a new
Mm.
haircut, one guy was like, "Ah, you're Andrea," and everyone was like, "Andrea, we know you, welcome." No, so I thought that was for me that was a moment where I said, okay, even if they are working remotely, they can create a connection.
Yeah.
because everybody knew her, everybody knew who she was, what she did, uh, and she knew everybody. So I think it's more like the will of people wanting to make it work, but also the reciprocity. It has to have two parts to make it work. If it's only the employee, the ones who is like, okay, I want to get involved, I want to do more, I want to know more, and the boss is like, no, no, this is strictly professional, it will not make it work. If you
Yeah.
make the time to get to know your employees, to get to know your staff, and to get to know your coworkers, even though you're fully remotely, you can still make connections. I mean, there's so many people who meet online, and then after 7 years, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to take a flight to Paris and I'm going to meet my best friend for the first time in 7 years. If it happens in real life, why not at work?
Yeah, of course it can happen, but as you said, it needs to be like a lot of effort needs to be placed for it. And sometimes if one side is just putting the effort, it's gonna be kind of hard. But if both of the sides are putting an effort, then it will be nice when you both reunite to a certain at a certain point. I totally agree to that. But like here's the thing, also at the office, that effort doesn't need to be placed. It just happens.
Exactly.
You're working, someone says something, you just turn around, you react on the spot, you're like, huh? What? Really? That happened? Oh my God. But when you're just sitting there and like working alone, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm just working. Yeah, you send memes, blah, 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 you do this. Unless you have someone, and I would say an imposter in the office who'll be like, hey, guess what happened today at the office? And you're like, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me. But to reach to that point, you need to be bonded with that person. So like I agree, but you need to really put effort to it.
Yes. But so I have one question for you. After we have discussed this, what is something you think we could change at ECU to make it better for the people who are working remotely?
After we had what?
After all the discussion we had, all the topics that we brought up, what is something you think we could try to make happen in order to improve the experience of the people working fully remotely at ECU?
For example, and I've always have been thinking about this at the office, instead of each of the workers and the coworkers having their own laptop to open up the meetings, why wouldn't we have a camera set up somewhere that would show the whole office with this one mic and with a big screen? So whoever is on that screen from online sees the whole office. For example, our big boss, Scott, if he wants to say something, instead of going to each one of them, mute your mic, do this, do that. No, he'll just stand in front of the camera. The big screen is there. Everyone sees him. Everyone is at the office, doesn't need to do anything. They can share, speak like it's real life. And I feel like that would be a really good change towards the office because it will just give you more flexibility when everyone could see what's happening, everyone could speak at the same time, and it's just more interactive. That's one of the things. Another thing I would say is letting the people, for example, how am I gonna put this? If if you are working remotely, okay, why don't you have the people that are working remotely have a Zoom call that is open with that department by itself?
Mhm,
You know, it's like you're there, but you're not there. So, like, for example, you don't have to be there at all times, but the Zoom call is there. Since you're actually working, you will just unplug the mic, be like, hey, quick question, what about this? It will give you more the virtuality that you're actually there, you're with me. Even if your camera is not open at all times, but at any moment, it will give you the touch of the office where I will be like, excuse me, could I ask you this? I will just unmute my mic and be like, hey, quickly. You're like, yeah, yeah, tell me. Open the cameras, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this person beside me wants to ask you this question because it's regarding to this graphic or whatever. You just take the laptop, turn it a bit to the left. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. This will also let the people that are fully remotely working from outside the countries, for example, or that are far away from the office, to actually feel more involved in the office, you know, because you're
mhm.
actually there at all times. You're hearing what's happening, you're there, but you still have the comfort of closing your camera, closing your mic, And whenever you're needed, you're back on in seconds. You see what I mean? And I feel like it will also solve the problem of losing focus, because as you said that sometimes you lose focus, you go to the kitchen, you're like, oh, my mom is here, I'll speak with my mom a bit. Oh, my dad's here, I'll sit down with my dad a bit. Oh, my friend called, come on, no one is watching, I'll go down quickly for like a cup of coffee or something. But then there it's like, no, you're actually strictly forced to work, because at any moment someone will be like, excuse me, I need to ask you this. You see,
I'm
it's
going
just
to.
my
I think that the first idea is great. I'm going to tell you why the second one might not fully work. They did this when I was in the master in Paris. We have classes all day long, and for the first week, they tried to make us like stay connected the whole day, and teachers would just come in and come out. And not only did some computers wouldn't be able to take it, like some computers just strictly died because it was too much for them. Doing the homework, plus Moodle, plus the platform, plus Slack, plus the Zoom call time, and the computer just died. But also, uh, some people forgot to mute their mics.
oh yeah,
They just
that
muted their speaker, and it was super awkward when one of them got their girlfriend to come to their place, and hanky panky, and we could hear everything because he wouldn't mute, but he wouldn't speak. He wouldn't hear us either because he just muted the
the
speaker.
speaker.
Uh, and since none of us were the admins, the teacher had to come in. The teacher was like, "What's that noise?" And we're like, "We cannot kick him out." So for me, it was a very, very uncomfortable experience. And also, in many cases, this guy, he was connected, he was being supervised, and yet we were shouting at him like, "Hey, your mic is open, close it at least, log out," and he couldn't hear us.
But
So,
my exactly it he will learn from that for a lifetime now.
oh, he
Okay,
didn't. He
he
did it.
didn't.
Believe me, he did it again in a class.
Oh, oh.
Because after that we changed, like, okay, each class has their own Zoom meeting and everything, and he did like 2 times more.
Mm.
So it was like, bro, really, just
You
kill your
have people
mic.
like this sometimes. You have people like this. But yeah, no, I agree with you to the second one. It can be a bit complicated to a certain extent.
I mean, if everybody had the same equipment, and we would make sure that the computers had like enough RAM space to handle the Zoom call all day long, plus also Slack, plus all the other platforms, I think that
Mm.
it would be great, especially because, as you mentioned, it allows you to have like a similar experience to being at the office. Just anybody can come to you. That is something that I really, really appreciate from Eku. Uh, but I don't know. It- I I think we could make it work. It would be very, very complicated, but I love the idea of Big Brother. Having one camera, anybody can log into the feed, see like, okay, what are the equids doing?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. No, I totally and I got this idea because when I came to France, I graduated in 2020. It was mid
Mid
disaster of
pandemic.
COVID. And when I came to France, it was the first year of cinema school, and it was also full on online. And once it started to become less and the restrictions started to fade out and people were allowed to go out a bit more, that's when the university opened. However, some of us, for example, couldn't make it to the university because they were ill or sick or like didn't have the acceptance to leave the house and at certain points. That's when my professor came up with the idea of like, hey, I will be at my class and I will be teaching the 10 students out of the 50 students that are there. Why don't I just put a camera on top of the whiteboard? Let that camera face all of the students that are sitting there. So as a viewer, you're watching all of the students, and along the side, he has his computer sharing what is happening on the lesson. So you're sitting there, you're watching the class, and at the same time, you're watching the actual lectures that are being taken. And it just feels live,
A little
because
bit more
also
natural. Yeah.
the whiteboard is the same thing. It's split on the cameras of the people online and it's split with the lectures. So while you're at that certain point, you're just interacting with the people at any point. No one will miss anything. Even if a joke happens in the class, you're there to witness it.
If
You
you
will
see the
see it.
guys kissing in the background,
There is like there's nothing that will be missed out on you. But yeah, I agree.
that work.
Yeah, that would be nice for EQ, especially for EQ, because it's not a class, it's a co-working space, it's less people, and it's just there, you know?
Yeah,
And
you can
it
shoot
will be
the
nice for
jokes. You
Scott.
can also
Yeah,
like
it will be really nice for Scott instead of just looking, for example, at me or at someone else.
oh, he
Hey,
would love it. He would be just
text.
like, "Hey, guy, come, I need you."
Yeah, instead of like looking at someone and be like, could you text that person regarding this? No, just hey,
Maybe that
thank you.
would be too much power for him. We would turn him into
Mm.
a monster.
Yeah, I mean, no, maybe I'm not so sure. We can give it a test.
We
Like
can give you that test. I mean,
it doesn't. We have what it takes to make it work at the office, you know. So why won't we?
changes for 2024 is the first change on the list. So, well, just as a recap, thank you very much for joining us, Alaa. Thank you very much for this very, very good talk. This is the 20th Intro Survival Guide podcast. It's going to be also the last one from the year. So next year
Oh,
we're starting with season 2. We might go through a rebranding since the title of the podcast might be a little bit too difficult to pronounce for some people, especially
mm,
for the social media department sometimes. Um, so we might go through a rebranding. I want to thank everybody who's watching for joining us. The podcast of this year that was the most watched was Eastern Europeans in Paris, that was by Agem, by Ida, and by Uli also.
Julian,
Kudos to them three. Yeah,
shout out to Anna, our really close friend, me and Rodrigo.
we love you, even though you don't want to come back from Russia to us. Um, and we want to wish you all Merry Holidays, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever your heart wishes and
Like,
celebrates. And we hope to see you next year too.
absolutely, absolutely. It's really nice that you had me here, Rodrigo. It's a very nice talk, and I wish everyone happy holidays and happy New Year's as well.
Happy New Year's as well. We'll see you on January, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye bye.